Hello everyone, this is my first devlog for my game Repeat After Me. So first off, as always, I go to GitHub and make a repository for my game, so if I make a mistake I can always go back to the previous version. After that, I use Unity's built-in UI to make the piano. I use the buttons for the keys so that the player can either press them or use their keyboard to interact with the piano keys. If you know me, I'm not very creative when it comes to art, but this will do for now. Okay, so we're at day 2, and I realized that manipulating the buttons are harder when they are color tint than when they are animated. So I animated the buttons every time they were pressed by the player, or when the player pressed a specific key on their keyboard. On the same day, I started creating the HUD menu for the game, and I also added keys so the player will know what key to hit to interact with the keyboard. To finish the day, I coded the game. Sorry, I don't have any video footage of me actually coding. I didn't know if it was something interesting that you may want to see. But in short, I used a list to add the keys, and every time the player got the pattern correct, the game would add a new key. Unless the player got it wrong, then game over. I would also like to apologize for there being no sound. This is my first devlog and I didn't know OBS was an actual thing until the very end of making this game. But you will be able to hear what it sounds like at the end. The day prior to this, I whipped out my piano and played the keys that I needed for this game. I used Audacity to remove the background sound and then I added it to the game. As you can see, I'm coding in the audio and I do make a mistake in my code, but I will fix it eventually later on. Okay, so a couple of days passed by because I was working on school, but I was able to make some piano note sprites on GIMP and add them to the game to make it more appealing, and I used particle effects to make them pop up. The next day I finally was able to use OBS, and as you can see I changed the background to be a more darker theme. Here's how the game looked and sounds so far. After that, I made a simple dot for the mouse cursor. I'm not very artistic as I mentioned before, but it's better than having the boring default cursor in my opinion. After getting that done, I added the timer function to the game script, so if the player doesn't get the pattern completed in a certain amount of time, they will lose. I think this will make the game more challenging as that way there will be more than one way to lose. And I also added a score menu to display the player's score at the end when the game was over. Okay, so after I was done with that, I started making the title screen and example pictures of the game so I can post it on itch.io. This will allow players to know what my game looks like and what it's about. I know that many people say that to not judge a book by its cover, but if your game doesn't look pleasing to me, looking at the title picture, as a player, I might skip your game. Not saying that mine looks that great, but at least I tried somewhat. The final thing that I added was to create an option menu for the player that allowed them to adjust the volume and whether they wanted background music or not. I know that the background music isn't the best, but I had to program the sound manually to play, and I just was lazy, okay? I'm losing my voice, but it's all good. After posting the game and looking at some of the comments, I decided to actually listen to what people wanted and change the game a little. I changed all the colors of the piano keys so that the player will be able to distinguish the piano keys a little bit better. And I also reversed the order at which the pattern needed to be played, so whatever the game played first, the player had to play it last. I forgot to mention that this game was for the gamedev.js game jam, so you can check it out under the link below. I'm really happy how the game turned out because I used no assets and it's a really rounded game in my opinion. Thanks for watching and have a good one.